Hi everyone, I'm Vicki Matsumanji of the White Mountain Community Garden. Welcome to our January show for AZ Mountain Gardening. So you can see that we've gotten a lot of snow in the last few weeks, which is wonderful for us, but also we're not gardening either. So we'd like to take a break and show you what we did this summer. We took a little field trip to Sweet Corn Organic Nursery, and Brian Jones steps us through the way he puts his soil together. So welcome and enjoy the show.
This is our hay dirt, and it consists of 9-year-old compost and fresh sawdust and fresh bark. And this is actually, that first crop was just a nightmare to try to grow. I had peas out here. And between the hay dirt and the elk, I had a heck of a time trying to get some peas to grow. Yeah, and then in these rows, I also put in 2,000 pounds of worm castings just went in there. So that'll really help the nitrogen deficiency there. You only need in good soil 1 pound for 100 square foot. And you can buy them for $1 a pound here direct. That's cheap, think about it. And it's really, really effective. It not only feeds the plant, but it feeds the soil. And then you're adding the colonies of the microbes right there. Oh, and these are the sacks of some of the humic. Most people don't even know what this looks like. It looks just like a clay. And you see, if you get here real close, I don't know if you can see it on that camera or not, but you see the dark little flakes here? Yeah. That's actually little bits of coal. You'll find humic as a layer just above coal fields. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the finest humic and fulvic in the world. Comes from Dennis Yellow Horse in New Mexico. You know what's so nice about this super nutrient dense soil? Guess what? Your vegetables are going to be nutrient dense with mineral, trace mineral. You know, we address this all. You know, I'm the only company out there that puts an ingredient list on their bag. Look at this. I give you about 20 things I put in there. If you read the whole bag, you can get pretty close to the finished product. But there's 18 things I don't tell you. You know, that's my little deal, you know. But, and then the other cool thing is, when you see these in the store, just come with your dimensions. And there's a formula here to tell you how many bags you need. Yeah. So a 4x8, for every 1 inch, you need 2 bags. So if you're gonna get that magical 3 inches, now listen, you don't need 3 inches, 1 inch will work. If you can't afford it, just do it every year like that, you know. But you wanna get your 3 inches in there to keep it running. And it's a living thing and it'll run forever as long as you feed it. And realizes that your job is to keep this alive. You keep that soil alive, your plants, well, you saw them, they'll grow on their own. I'm no different than anybody else, I just have better dirt, that's all. Now a trained eye, or somebody been doing this for a few years, would be able to look at this field and see where the mycorrhizae is starting to bloom in it. It's not that difficult, it's the green stuff. The real dark green areas. Now, you'll see it's favoring green right along this edge because it's pulling the nitrogen and the mycorrhizae is jumping off of the good soil immediately onto those roots. And see, when it goes through the composting cycle, 90% of it is going to die, okay? But that's what's so cool about Mother Nature. She always leaves a little when you grow organically. And that mycorrhizae will build up immediately if you have the right conditions. And that's what I try to do. is to create the right condition in this soil, not for the plant, but for the mycorrhizae. The plant is just an extra little goodie I get. And it looks like this is going to work for me because these plants have only been come up a week ago. And they look pretty big for 1 week. So I'm hoping that the nitrogen levels are going to still be there after a few more weeks, you know, because like I said, that raw sawdust will suck the life out of from your plants. And that's how it works in a compost pile, same thing. When you put carbon in there, the carbon actually pulls the nitrogen from your green source. That's why you always want to have 25 greens to 1 carbon, and it's to get that process going. But once the composting cycle begins in carbon, it re-releases all the nitrogen it stole to compost itself, you see. So nitrogen, in that sense, doesn't go away. It just moves around a little bit. And then now it becomes available to plants again. Process. It takes 7 years for a pine needle to decompose in the wild or in the forest. I can do it in as little as 2 months with the right ammunition, and moisture is one of them. You need moisture, air, and heat. You can probably see here, this is new material that's just come in. And then what you do is you block it back with your 9-year-old material and then hit it with your pond water, and this will decompose in a matter of months, where in nature it would take years to do. If you don't know what you're doing, you can tie your nitrogen up in your soil for up to 7 years. If you're digging this material in too soon, it's a no-no. But it makes a high carbon-based compost, makes the best compost at the end of the day. Over here is our bagging area. Yeah, I kind of thought of this one. That way we can keep bagging. It doesn't slow down the production at all. Anyway, so this is kind of a thing we do, and I like just driving the tractors and stuff on it because it saves all that energy and it'll work just as good as a grinder. And we do have grinders, but why spend the diesel and the time and all that effort when you just drag it out here and drive on it? It's going to break it down enough. Okay, let's look at the worms. Come on in, everybody come in. Okay, these pits are really deceptive. I mean, it go from the top of that back ridge to the bottom of the pit is 7 feet. So you're only seeing maybe a third of the material that's actually here. But these are European night crawlers. No, they're a lot bigger. And now these are a lot of hatchlings in here. That's a pretty good, not too bad of a size of worm, but these are perfect for fishing. And why I use these is because they're gonna wind up in your dirt, okay? So you want to pick a worm that's going to benefit the customer the most, and these will. These live in the top 18 inches of the soil, where your red wigglers live in the top 2 inches. Now, there's nothing wrong with wigglers. They produce a real good casting, real nutritious, and it's right there where the feeder roots is. But I like the idea of running a worm around the root ball of a plant. It allows oxygen in, nutrients in, and they're fertilizing everywhere they go, you know. So we'll run these in a bed for about 45 days, and then we'll start cycling them out. This bed right behind you, we just started on this one as far as putting it through the wormomatic. And this bed over here has been drying for a week, and we'll scrape up all the excess alfalfa and grains and stuff. Now it's real important, well, I believe your worm casting is only going to be as good as what you feed your worms, really. So over these last 2 years, I've developed a special feed for them that's got And I don't look at it just feeding the worms, because I'm also feeding the microscopic life in here too. So the worm program or the feed program that they're on, we address both of those. Because the longer oh, and by the way, you know the hay fields that I was telling you about? The Fat Albert, the 3 hay fields, that's what the worm bedding is, okay? That's what this is. So essentially it's 9-year-old compost. And then when you run, whatever you run through a worm, whatever goes in comes out 5 times more potent. And what's really cool about them is that they can eat 1 microbe and they'll poop out 100 to 100,000 of the exact copy of what they consumed. It all happens in the gut of a worm. One of the things I'll tell you that you should feed your worms, and you see these little white flakes in here? You can see it now. This hadn't got watered for a week, this bed, so the food is just laid up here from the last time I fed. But see, they're night crawlers, so they come out at night to eat. And they'll eat a side of the hill. See down here, see all of that hole is eaten down? That'll happen in 1 or 2 nights. It's amazing. That's where you know where your big populations are too, the little guys that hatch. Now listen, we sell all the big worms here. If you guys need any worms, they're $3 a dozen, or you get 100 for 20 bucks. Here's some of I think we got a bunch in here maybe. Yeah, you'll see some in here. Well, oops. Anyway, there's probably 100 or so in there.
But then the pellet things, that's the alfalfa.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things we do feed them is, I believe in supporting local companies, and there's an outfit in Levine, Arizona that makes a beautiful alfalfa pellet, and they'll swell up, but the worms love them.
That's the alfalfa with molasses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were using on the onions.
Yeah, you should not dig it in until it's composted. Same thing, if you dig anything you put in your dirt raw, will suck all the nitrogen around it before it re-releases it. Bermuda is a wonderful fertilizer, but should only be used as top dressing unless it's been extremely composted. Then you can put it directly in. Or run it through a rabbit or an alpaca, you know, run it through one of those critters, and then when it comes out, it's good. You know, it's already gone through that composting cycle in the gut of that animal, you see. So, oh, I'm sorry, the white stuff is oyster shell. Yeah, you want to keep it a high calcium, and most plants love calcium, and there's certain ones that really like it, and we won't go into that. But, and that's one of the reasons why it's in there. I have to cater to various people, you know. When you have the best dirt, they seek you out, you know. So
eggshells, should you be using your eggshells?
Yeah, eggshells are wonderful. I don't use them because of the salmonella possibilities when you're doing it on this scale. But for a home gardener, use your eggshells, use your coffee grounds, your tea bags, any of your vegetable. You know, I threw a watermelon on that hill, and in 2 days it was gone. So they like a good, you know, they like veggies and stuff, you know. And they'll be getting basically a lot. The corn I'm growing out there, it's real expensive to buy organic corn. So I grow my own, and then I'll dry it and grind it for my worms, you know. They love the corn, yeah. And then they'll eat the stalks, and, you know, but all that gets they wind up with it anyway, you see. But fresh grains and stuff is good, and it also keeps the mycorrhizae going too. So you're doing two things in here. You're building up your microbes, your mycorrhizae, and then you're feeding the worm population. So the alfalfa, if you just, whatever you have on hand, don't try to use raw pine needles on your worms. They hate them. You won't find them in nature much until they're broke down. A worm will eat anything broke down. It's very selective with raw material. And we do use cardboard for part of their bedding in here. Down, like I say, these beds are 7 feet deep in the bottom. I'll put a couple of feet of cardboard in there. And that way the African night crawlers, and there's a native worm here. Well, let's see, the biggest one we found now has been 18 inches. And we have a picture of it. One of my employees took it. And about the size of your finger. I mean, and oh, it's so slimy. Oh, they're gross. But I found 3 of them, and I've got them in here. Now, they won't breed with the other one. I'm not going to wind up with monster European night crawlers. I mean, in my dreams, I would like for them to do that, but it's not going to happen. But what I would like to maybe let those populations grow a little bit too. You'll see a lot of those bigger ones up around McNary and stuff up on the res, but they're here, but they're far and few between.
Miracle grow type stuff. So what we've actually done is kill probably some.
Well, what you've done is you've removed the pathway to allow the plant to take in nutrients. Whether it's organic or chemical, the plant doesn't care. It's up to us to be responsible for that. But you need the vehicle. So this is the other thing that's important with our soil. If you have put chemical ever, see once the humic and fulvic's gone, it takes 300,000 years up here for Mother Nature to restore it. You know, it's based on your environmental conditions, is how much humic and fulvic you have. If you go to the Midwest, where 30 million buffalo roamed, you know, it's taken them right out about 60 years now to ruin that soil with their chemical. But that'll show you how good that rich dirt was before the chemicals hit it. We remove 300,000 years up here with 3 applications. It took them 50 years to do it. So
if we put your soil on it now, will that help?
You need to do the minimum of 3 inches with chemical damage. You'll see a difference with 1 inch, but we recommend getting 3 inches in there, and that way it'll run all on its own. You never have to buy it again, so to speak, if you put the 3 in the beginning. Otherwise, put 1 inch in for the next 3 years. Get that magic number in there. Then you can maintain that soil forever, as long as you use a 1/2 inch of compost or add another 1/2 inch of the flick. A lot of people do that. They're in situations where they can't really make compost. I get it, you know.
So my question is then, to help improve the soil, since I've ruined mine, what do I need to do while my
3 inches, listen, 3 inches of my soil is going to restore that soil back before you ruined it. Yeah, and now
I can put that on now.
you can put it on now. Your plants will see a difference immediately, because it turns into like a T, and it spreads through the soil, through the web, pretty equally. It's amazing how it works. And then the mycorrhizae is going to help also repair it. The fulvic that's in there will also repair it. But make sure to till it in this fall. Get it in there, and you may want to add another 1/2 inch just to perk it up if you know that there's been chemical damage. And this goes back since the 50s. So what I tell people, when you move into a house, you don't know what the people did to that soil, you know, before you got there. And you could be growing organic, wondering why nothing's happening. That's why I put the fulvic and humic in there. And it's to help the customer, because, you know, if you have native soil, you really don't even, well, maybe up here you'd want to add a little anyway, just because the soil is so poor. This is probably the worst soil on the planet up on this hill. So, but once you get it going, you've got a really great growing condition for about 90 days. So that's the other kind of, we have 3 less days of growing time than Anchorage, Alaska, okay? And they got almost 24 hours of sun. So we're in the worst soil and one of the shortest growing season in America. And isn't that funny how I developed all these fertilizers? We bring in crops. I normally, you know when I normally plant my garden? July 4th. My tomatoes, my peppers, my corn, ask my neighbors. You know when it's ready? End of August. People that planted in May, you know when their corn and tomatoes and beans are ready? End of August. So if you love to water and you love to garden for a long time out and fight the wind and fight the heat and fight all that, God bless you. You know, let's face it, it's way cheaper to buy vegetables than it is to grow them. You gotta love to do it. And the quality of what we can grow will never come close to what you can buy in the store, even your certified organic veggies, okay? That's kind of a, I won't go into that. But I'd much rather buy my food from an organic farmer than at Safeway. Let's just put it that way. Keep it simple, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
I plant in containers because my soil, I got caliche soil.
You plant in containers?
Yeah.
Yeah, the best way is just use it straight if you can afford it. If not, put 3 inches in the very top of your containers. And then as you water, it'll make like a tea and it'll rejuvenate that soil below it there. And like you say, if you got stuff with chemicals in it, if you have chemical-based fertilizers already in a container, just throw it in the landfill and let the critters take care of it there. Get it out of your yard, and then just go with fresh. Yeah, and I've just picked up a distributor. They're out of Canada. So we'll have our soil to British Columbia here in just a matter of a few months.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about starting your seeds in just a little, you know, like a pot straight?
Yeah, this is perfect for seed starting. Perfect. I mean, they'll jump up. That corn was up in 4 days, you know, and it usually takes 7. So, yeah. And I've had squash come up as little as 2 days. Yeah, that squash there has come up last Saturday. It's 7 days old and it's already got true leaves on it. Yeah, it's freaking me out too. It is, I know. So, okay, let's show you some plants over here that I do all my testing in Bantam corn. I've done it for the last 12 years. And I recommend if anybody is doing any testing on things, organically especially, you want to use the same crop every time. And you'll become an expert with that crop, and you'll be able to see the nuances, the differences really early on if you do it over and over and over again. That's just the way we are, you know, I mean, we learn like that. So these are 40 days old from seed. It's got the second set of leaves. That's 2 years old in nature. So this stuff is really freaking me out. Now, granted, I never grow the oak tree before. I just did it as a whim, you know, knowing how slow they grow. And I thought, you know, if I can get an oak tree to grow pretty good in here, I really got something. Well, here it is. I like the plants to speak for me the best, you know. I mean, like I can go and I tell you how great it is and everything like that, or you just get a bag and try it. And that's the best advertisement in the world. You know, your plants will sell it for you. But here's another example though. This is about what the plant should look like, okay, in decent soil for the same amount of time. This has not received any fish or seaweed on it. These have gotten it every week, and the reason why I always demonstrate this is because that fish and seaweed is for the microscopic life in the soil. You need to feed your soil. See, the plant already knows what to do. As farmers, we need to set up that condition for the plant to do its natural course of things, you see. And it's pretty contemptible with man thinking they're going to get the right concoction with their chemicals to do what Mother Nature does all on her own, you know. So that's all I do, is I try to set up different environmental conditions for different critters that I'm trying to blow up to give my customer the best possible chance of having a successful garden. So use your fish and seaweed. It makes a heck of a difference. And there's nothing wrong with this plant. There isn't. You know, this is about what it should be, you know. But these watermelons are kind of nice too. Here, let me give you some numbers. Our soil test came in at 76 parts per million on the nitrogen. You need 25 for a great garden. Our phosphorus came in at 30. You need 8 to have a great garden. Our potash is 750 parts per million. You need about 500. So it's incredible. And that doesn't even account for the mycorrhizae, and we have all 8 colonies in our soil. And it doesn't matter what you plant with it. You can do a tree, a bush, a lawn, corn, tomatoes. One of those colonies is going to attach to the root of your plant.
Well, we learned a lot from Brian Jones, didn't we? Learned about how he puts his soil together, specifically about mycorrhizae, which is really, really important for building healthy soil. So now we know more about that. And his incredible worm bed operation. Oh my goodness, all of those beds of like thousands, millions of worms for harvesting worm castings, which is one of the best fertilizers that you'll ever find. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.